December 7th, 1941, above the cane fields of Oahu. The air, thick with the smell of burning oil and cordite, is torn by the unfamiliar shriek of Nakajima B-5N bombers. For Lieutenant, junior grade, Francis M. Fran Flaherty of Fighting Squadron 3, gripping the stick of his F4F3 Wildcat, the world has just been ripped apart. Below him, Battleship Row is a vision from hell, a line of dying steel giants vomiting black smoke into a perfect blue sky. His immediate concern, however, is at his 10 o'clock high. A Mitsubishi A6M Zero, its Hinamaru, the red sun, gleaming like a drop of blood, banks with an impossible grace. Flaherty knows the reports. He's read the intelligence briefings from China. The whispers about a Japanese fighter that can outturn, outclimb, and outrun anything the Allies have. But reading is one thing, seeing it is another. He shoves the throttle forward, the Wright R-1820 Cyclone engine roaring in protest. The Wildcat is a tough, rugged brawler, built like a bulldog. But against the Zero, it feels like a truck trying to race a mongoose. The Japanese pilot, a ghost in the sun, pulls his nose up in a near-vertical climb, hanging in the air for a moment before nosing over, coming back down like a hawk on a field mouse. Flaherty throws his Wildcat into a hard defensive turn, the G-forces squeezing the breath from his lungs. The canopy rattles. He can hear the thump-thump-thump of the Zero's 7.7mm machine guns and the deeper, terrifying thump-crack of its 20mm cannons walking across his wing. This is the brutal new reality of the Pacific War. In the desperate months that follow, this scene plays out again and again. From Wake Island to the Coral Sea, American pilots in their sturdy but outmatched Wildcats learn to fear the Zero. They are told not to dogfight it. Make one pass and dive away, the instructors say. They are taught tactics like the Thack Weave, a brilliant piece of aerial choreography developed by Lieutenant Commander Jimmy Thack, where two Wildcats could use teamwork to cover each other's tails against a more maneuverable foe. It works, it saves lives, but it is a defensive, reactive posture. It is the tactic of the underdog. On the carrier decks, in the ready rooms, the pilots talk. They curse the Wildcat's narrow hand-cranked landing gear. They praise its toughness. It can absorb punishment that would shred a Zero. But they long for more speed, more climb. They need an equalizer. They need a weapon that can not just survive the Zero, but hunt it. Back in Tokyo, at the Imperial General Headquarters, the reports are glowing. The A6M Ryzen, the Zero fighter, is invincible. It is the manifestation of the Japanese fighting spirit, elegant, precise, and deadly. Pilots like Saburo Sakai and Hiroyoshi Nishizawa are racking up kill counts that beg a belief, becoming modern-day samurai of the skies. They are sweeping the air clear of British Brewster Buffaloes, American P-40 Warhawks, and the stubborn F4F Wildcats. The calculus of air power seems simple and absolute. One Zero is worth 5, maybe 10 Allied fighters. The strategic planning for the conquest of the Pacific is predicated on this dominance. It is an assumption that has so far proven lethally accurate. They have no reason to believe anything will change. They cannot conceive of an American plane that could challenge their airborne supremacy. They believe the sun has risen on a new era of Japanese air power, one that will never set. They are dangerously, catastrophically wrong. June 10th, 1942. A remote, treeless island in the Aleutians. A U.S. Navy PBY Catalina reconnaissance plane drones over the tundra of Akutan Island. The pilot, Lieutenant William Bill Thies, spots something unnatural against the green marsh. A glint of metal, a red circle. He brings the lumbering Catalina down for a closer look. There, upside down in the boggy ground, is a nearly intact Mitsubishi A6M Zero. Its pilot, Flight Petty Officer Tadayoshi Koga, lies nearby, his neck broken from the crash landing. He had hoped to land on solid ground after his engine was damaged during a raid on Dutch Harbor, but the marshy terrain flipped his fighter. This single tragic accident will change the course of the air war. The aircraft, which becomes known as the Akutan Zero, is carefully salvaged. It is a holy grail for Allied intelligence. For the first time, they have not just pieces of wreckage, but a living, breathing example of their most feared adversary. It is barged to San Diego, repaired, and put back in the air with an American test pilot at the controls. The secrets come pouring out. Its weaknesses, long suspected, are now confirmed and quantified. The engine has a float-type carburetor that cuts out under negative G-forces. Put a zero into a dive and its engine sputters. Its controls stiffen dramatically at high speeds. Most critically, it has no armor protection for the pilot and no self-sealing fuel tanks. It is a thoroughbred built for agility, but one well-placed bullet can turn it into a funeral pyre. This intelligence travels 3,000 miles east, to a sprawling factory complex in Bethpage, New York. This is the home of the Grumman Aircraft Engineering Corporation, a place pilots affectionately call the Grumman Iron Works. They build their planes to be tough, to bring their boys home. The company's founder, Leroy Grumman, and his factory, Chief Jake Swerble, have a simple but revolutionary philosophy. Listen to the pilots. Even before the Akutan Zero was found, they were already at work on the Wildcat's replacement, the XF6F1. They had interviewed battle-hardened veterans like Jimmy Thatch and Butch O'Hare. The pilot's request was simple. We need more horses. Grumman's team decided to take the largest, most powerful radial engine available, the 2,000-horsepower Pratt Whitney R-2800 double wasp, and build the smallest, most agile airframe possible around it. Now, with the hard data from the captured Zero, the design is refined with ruthless efficiency. The new fighter, dubbed the Hellcat, is purpose-built to kill Zeros. It is not designed to outturn the A6M. That is a fool's errand. Instead, it is designed to exploit every single one of the Zero's weaknesses. It will use its immense horsepower to outclimb and outdive its opponent. Its controls will remain crisp and responsive at the high speeds where the Zero becomes a stubborn pig. It will be armed with a devastating battery of 650 caliber Browning machine guns, a wall of lead that can shred the unarmored Japanese fighter. And in the Grumman tradition, it will be built like a flying tank. Over 200 pounds of cockpit armor and self-sealing fuel tanks mean a Hellcat pilot can take hits that would vaporize a Zero and still keep fighting. You are no longer just a pilot. You are an armored fist wrapped around a sledgehammer of an engine. The philosophy is no longer survival. It is annihilation. The Hellcat is not a fencer's rapier. It is a barbarian's war axe, brutally effective and utterly without grace. And it is about to be unleashed. June 19th, 1944. Somewhere over the Philippine Sea. The radar room aboard the USS Lexington is a sweltering cave of controlled chaos. Men in sweat-soaked khaki shirts lean over the flickering green scopes, their voices a low, urgent murmur. Contact. Raid 1 bearing 300, range 150 miles. Many bandits. The message electrifies the ship, then the entire fleet. This is it, the decisive battle the U.S. Navy has been seeking. The Japanese mobile fleet, the Kido Butai, has sortied to destroy the American amphibious forces invading Saipan. They are committing their entire naval air power to one massive, all-or-nothing strike. Within minutes, the flight decks of 15 American carriers turn into roaring crucibles of organized violence. Hundreds of F6F Hellcats are being armed, fueled, and launched. In the cockpit of his Hellcat Mincy III, Commander David McCampbell, the air group commander from the USS Essex, watches the endless procession of fighters clawing into the sky. It is a swarm of unprecedented scale. Over 450 Hellcats form a colossal combat air patrol, a multi-layered shield of fighters orbiting Task Force 58. They are the best-trained pilots in the world, flying the best naval fighter in the world, guided by the best radar and fighter direction in the world. They are about to face the largest single carrier strike the Japanese have ever launched. The first Japanese wave, 69 aircraft, appears on the radar screens. The fighter directors begin their work, their voices calm and precise, vectoring squadrons to intercept points miles from the fleet. Viper Squadron, Vector 2905, Angels 20, Bandits 100 miles. Let 'em have it. For the Japanese pilots, it is like flying into a buzzsaw. They are a mix of veterans and hastily trained recruits, flying planes that are now technologically inferior. They expect to fight their way through a thin screen of American fighters. Instead, they are met by a solid wall of Hellcats descending on them from above. Diving out of the sun with a massive speed and altitude advantage, Lieutenant AJG Alex Vrachu, a pilot from the USS Lexington, spots a formation of Judy dive bombers. He rolls his Hellcat over and plunges into them. The speed of his dive is immense. The Judys seem to hang in the air. He opens fire. One bomber disintegrates. He pulls up, picks another. It explodes. In the space of 8 minutes, Vrachu shoots down 6 Japanese aircraft, firing only 360 rounds of ammunition. He is not an anomaly. All across the sky, the battle is a massacre. The Hellcats are unstoppable. Their 650 calibers chew through the fragile Japanese airframes. Their armor shrugs off the 7.7mm rounds of the Zeros. When a Hellcat takes damage, its self-sealing tanks often prevent a fire, allowing the pilot to limp back to his carrier. When a Zero takes a burst, it vanishes in a ball of flame. The Japanese strikes come in 4 waves. Each is met and annihilated. By the end of the day, the statistics are so lopsided they border on the unbelievable. Over 340 Japanese aircraft have been shot down. American losses in the air are just 29. One pilot returning to his carrier is heard exclaiming over the radio, "Hell, this is like an old-time turkey shoot." The name sticks. The Battle of the Philippine Sea will forever be known as the Great Mariana's Turkey Shoot. It is the single most lopsided air battle in history, and it is the Hellcat's magnum opus. It has, in a single afternoon, utterly broken the back of Japanese naval aviation. From this day forward, Japan will never again be able to mount a major carrier-based air offensive. Tokyo, late June 1944. In a dimly lit office at the Ministry of the Navy, Vice Admiral Jisaburo Ozawa stares at the after-action report from the Battle of the Philippine Sea. The paper feels cold in his hands. The numbers are stark, brutal, and to his staff, utterly incomprehensible. Loss of over 340 carrier aircraft. Loss of 2 fleet carriers, with a third crippled. In return, minimal damage to the American fleet. American aircraft losses reported in the low dozens. It cannot be true. It has to be American propaganda, inflated to demoralize them. An aide, a young captain with a grim face, presents a compilation of pilot debriefs. The stories are fragmented, panicked. They speak not of a battle, but of an extermination. They describe an endless sky, black with dark blue barrel-chested American fighters. They speak of these new planes, the Harukatos, diving on them with impossible speed, shrugging off hits from their 20mm cannons, and replying with a firestorm of heavy machine gun rounds that tore their Zeros and Judys apart before they even knew they were under attack. The staff officers argue. Some insist the pilots are exaggerating to cover for their own failures. Others suggest a new, secret American technology, a weapon of unimaginable power. The truth is far more mundane and far more terrifying. The unbelievable calculus of the turkey shoot is not the result of one factor, but a confluence of several that the Japanese High Command had failed to grasp. First, there was the plane itself. The Hellcat was not just a machine. It was a system designed for attrition warfare. It was easy to fly, stable and forgiving for a novice pilot. Its ruggedness meant it could be repaired quickly on a pitching carrier deck. Crucially, its armor and self-sealing tanks meant that even when it was shot up, its most valuable component, the pilot, often survived to fight another day. This led to the second decisive factor, the pilot. While Japan's cadre of elite, pre-war aces had been systematically wiped out over Guadalcanal and Rabaul, America's pilot training program was a vast, continent-spanning industrial enterprise. A young American naval aviator arriving in the fleet in 1944 had over 300, sometimes 400 hours of flight time in advanced aircraft. His Japanese counterpart rushed through an abbreviated training syllabus due to desperate shortages of fuel and experienced instructors. Might have less than 100. The Americans were sending university-educated athletes into combat. The Japanese were sending brave but barely trained teenagers. Finally, there was doctrine and technology. American Task Force 58 was a masterpiece of integrated warfare. Its long-range radar provided early warning. Its fighter direction officers, coolly plotting intercepts from the combat information centers of the carriers, were the unseen conductors of the aerial orchestra. They placed the Hellcats in the perfect position to strike, with every advantage of height and speed. The Japanese, relying on visual contact and rigid formations, were flying blind into a perfectly laid trap. The Japanese commanders simply couldn't believe the numbers because the paradigm they understood had been shattered. In 1942, one of their aces in a Zero was worth a squadron of Wildcats. By 1944, the equation had been inverted with horrifying totality. One American pilot in a Hellcat, guided by radar, was worth a squadron of their new, inexperienced pilots. The reports were not propaganda. They were a death sentence for Japanese air power. The brutal, lopsided kill ratio of the F6F Hellcat was a mathematical fact, a cold equation that signaled the inevitable end of their empire. October 25, 1944, the skies over Leyte Gulf. The American invasion of the Philippines is underway. Commander David McCampbell, now the U.S. Navy's top-scoring ace, leads a flight of 7 Hellcats off the USS Essex. A massive formation of Japanese aircraft, some 60 planes, is reported heading for the vulnerable American landing ships. McCampbell and his wingman, Lieutenant Roy Rushing, attack without hesitation. What follows is a masterclass in aerial combat, a testament to both pilot skill and the Hellcat's sublime performance. In a swirling 90-minute dogfight against overwhelming odds, McCampbell and Rushing tear the Japanese formation to pieces. McCampbell uses the Hellcat's strengths to perfection, diving passes, high-speed gunnery, and powerful climbing escapes. He never tries to turn with the more agile Zeros. He dictates the terms of every engagement. When the fight is over, McCampbell has shot down an astonishing 9 enemy aircraft in a single sortie, an American record that will never be broken. Rushing has downed another 6. The 2 men in 2 Hellcats have shattered a force of 60. McCampbell lands back on the Essex with just 2 rounds of ammunition left. This single engagement encapsulates the legacy of the Grumman F6F Hellcat. It was more than just a fighter. It was an instrument of total aerial dominance. It earned the nickname the Ace Maker for good reason. Of the 200 U.S. Navy fighter aces in World War II, over 300 of them earned that title flying the Hellcat. It was a platform that amplified the skill of a great pilot and provided a crucial margin of safety for a new one. From its first kill in August 1943 to the end of the war, the Hellcat was the undisputed king of the Pacific skies. Its statistics are staggering. U.S. Navy and Marine Corps pilots flying the F6F were credited with 5,163 enemy aircraft destroyed in air-to-air combat, more than any other Allied aircraft in the Pacific theater. This accounted for 56% of all U.S. Navy and Marine air-to-air victories in the war. The final officially calculated kill-to-loss ratio in aerial combat was a mind-boggling 19-1. For every Hellcat lost in a dogfight, 19 Japanese aircraft were shot down. This overwhelming superiority achieved its primary objective. It protected the fleet. By sweeping the skies clear of enemy planes, the Hellcat allowed the carriers, battleships, and landing craft to do their work. It broke the will of the Japanese naval air arm, forcing them into the desperate suicidal tactic of the kamikaze. Even then, Hellcats on combat air patrol became the fleet's first and most lethal line of defense against these attacks. The Japanese High Command, which began the war with a fighter that seemed a decade ahead of its rivals, could never truly comprehend the machine that broke them. It wasn't just a better aircraft. It was the product of a different philosophy, a philosophy of industrial might, of valuing the pilot over the plane, of ruthless pragmatism over aesthetic perfection. The Hellcat was not elegant. It was not beautiful, but it was, quite simply, the most effective killing machine in the sky. It was the blunt, brutal, and undeniable answer to the ghost of the Zero.